Welcome, everyone, to a postseason wild card winning edition of 41 is the mic. I am Matt Derrick, alongside frozen mustache enthusiast Nick Jacobs, who is looks quite warm despite the
Hey,
weather.
yeah, we always got to thaw out. I wasn't at the game. I was doing I was helping with the post game show, so I don't have to thaw out as much as other people did. But boy, that drive home from the station to it was just as brutal because I didn't know the thermometer on my truck could read -11, but there we were. There we were in that moment. I was like, I thought my truck stopped at 0, but it didn't. It went -11. I'm like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, I hit -11 as well, and I had the misfortune of walking towards the wind to get to my car in the parking lot at Arrowhead.
Mm.
So I'm just starting to get the feeling back in my fingers, but I did not. My car did not get really warm to, like, what I would define as even room temperature until I got home.
Yeah, I know for my truck driving home because we're stationed. People that live in the area, our station's down near the plaza, and driving back to the Northland, it just started to feel normal at Shoto Traffic Way. So after North Kansas City Hospital, for anybody that's kind of been around the area before, yeah, it didn't feel normal to then. And it's normally right when I reach downtown when it's 32 degrees or 10 degrees or whatever that it feels, what you call room temperature. And took a little bit longer today, but there, man, I tell you what, -11. I hope I don't ever see it again, but it probably will.
Yeah, this was clearly, obviously, by the stats, the coldest
Yeah,
game in Arrowhead history.
right.
One of the coldest games, and by all means, start taking off the layers.
Yeah, man. See if
I'm
I have
I'm
thaw.
I'm still layered up. I wore my all juice hoodie
Outstanding.
to the game, and the idea was this was underneath my coat. So my
Yeah.
idea was I would get to the game, and hey, I'll take that off, and I'll have my kind of flannel shirt on, and then I have a t-shirt on under that. I never took off the hoodie.
Hmm.
It was still chilly inside. It wasn't like cold. And believe me, I have nothing but first world problems here. So the folks who were out working the game, the photographers, anybody out on the field, I sit next to the NFL frequency guys. That was a cold job. Everything on the field was a cold job. I don't know how the players stood it, other than, the heaters on the sidelines certainly help, but I don't know otherwise, because not only was that cold, that wind was nasty. In case you didn't see it, yes. Starting temperature kickoff was -4 with a 27-degree below wind chill.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's going to leave a mark.
I don't know. I don't know how many, like you said, I don't know how many of the photogs were able to get through it. I don't know how any of the NFL staff, whether it's Chiefs, Dolphins, PR staffs, anybody. I don't know how anybody got through that. And like you said, all the people working concessions and whatever else there may have been around that area. I don't know how anybody got through that, but tip of the cap to everybody who did, and then all of the fans that were out there. I don't know how you got through it either, but props to you. And like it was, and the players on the field that weren't wearing sleeves, I felt bad for them every time. I was like, oh, that it has to sting. But hey, you know, it, the Chiefs were able to come away with the victory, but props to every single person that was physically out in the elements of that game. And I know it sounds crazy, but the two biggest memories that we're going to get from that is Mahomes' helmet cracking because of how cold it was, and then Andy Reid's mustache whenever it had just icicles all over it.
Yeah. I think the lasting images of both of those will be on their Hall of Fame
Hmm.
reels when they
Yes,
go in. That shot of Andy Reid with the frozen mustache, and
right.
yes, Patrick with a dent and chunk out of his helmet will absolutely be when they go into the hall. Those will follow them around for the next 30 years.
I agree. Yeah, I thought paint had just chipped off of it because it has happened to other NFL teams before, to where paint will chip off of something if it's that cold and everything. But no, like the longer they started showing it, the more you're like, oh no, that's a chunk of the shell of his helmet. That's not good.
No, not good. And Mahomes didn't want to change helmets. I mean, he wanted to keep going because he didn't want to disrupt the game. He didn't want to stop the rhythm. And I think he was a little worried that they might make him come out of the game. I was a little surprised that the unaffiliated neurological consultant didn't want to take a look at him.
That's what I thought was happening right then. And I was like, man, they're doing that after a couple plays in red zone. I was like, you kidding me right now? But no, they ended up not working out that same way. But man, yeah, no, I was very surprised there for a while. I was like, oh wow.
And now players have a backup helmet, and
Yeah.
Mahomes had a backup helmet. Only problem was that it wasn't kept in a warm area.
Yeah.
So when he got his helmet, it was frozen.
Right.
And so that was kind of uncomfortable. So then during the next, after they got off the field after that possession, they were, trying to get the helmet warmed up. But then they also were building him a third helmet. So I think it looked like Alan Wright. I couldn't tell for sure because everybody had, was covered up and, it looked like Jawas on the field with, how much covering they had on. So you couldn't tell who anybody was, but it looked like Alan was trying to fix up a third helmet for Mahomes because you have to have a backup to the backup.
Right.
So they were ready to go. And I mean, and weather absolutely played a huge element in this game. And, one of the conversation pieces, I know that Andy Reid really even mentioned it on Wednesday, and you and I talked offline about this, was that the cold weather is a factor, but it only becomes a factor if you kind of make it one. You can't bank on it. You have to make it one. And I thought the Chiefs absolutely did that in this game against the Dolphins. They made the Dolphins miserable in the cold.
Yes. Yeah. No, that was everything. I know some people said we were making too big deal out of the cold when we chatted about it earlier this week on one of the shows, and we didn't because there's a reason why. It literally got to -3, -4 in that range and -27 wind chill. And yeah, you had to early on. I was loving that first Chiefs drive whenever they let Pacheco go like a battering ram at them, and Dolphins players had no interest in trying to tackle him and put him to the ground. So like Pacheco doing that really set that tempo for that game for the Dolphins and really took them out of that mindset to see what they were made of. And they showed that they were not the 2000 Baltimore Ravens in any way, shape, or form. And that's when you knew things weren't going to go well. And then some of those poor guys getting hurt immediately for the Dolphins defense, man. I can only imagine just trying to tackle Pacheco at full speed like that. No, that's not something a lot of people want to do. And you do have to have a potential mental toughness to be able to get through that. And Pacheco has that. And like that's what makes him a fun running back in that regard. May have his limitations athletically, but man, like he's the perfect type of running back you want for that type of game. The only other guys I can think of that would be on that level in terms of that would have fun in that and delivering that type of punishment, or actually three guys I think about it would be like Marion Barber, Mike Allstott, and then Derrick Henry. Just off the top of my head, those guys, and maybe Jerome Bettis potentially. But I mean, like, those are the guys that I think would have that same level of fun that Pacheco did, being able to go out there and perform like that.
Yeah, there was no doubt he was having a blast in the weather, and frankly, the Chiefs defense did too. I mean, they had the same mentality on their side, as far as they wanted to make the tackles. The Dolphins didn't seem to have a whole lot of interest in. And there was some hard hitting. I mean, obviously, you saw what I thought was a great example of L'Jarius Sneed and the Chiefs secondary just stealing out of the Bill Belichick playbook of how to play Tyreek Hill. You just smack him at the line of scrimmage, and then when he gets up, you smack him down again. I mean, and that was L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, he made the life miserable for not only Tyreek but Jalen Waddle tonight.
Yeah, and I heard from some people over there that allegedly Sneed may have reminded Tyreek to catch the ball at one point. So I don't know if that actually happened, but if that did, then the Chiefs were having fun tonight, and their first thoughts weren't about the cold. If you're telling the best wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the league, that when you're in frigid temperatures like that.
Yeah, and I mean, really to me, I mean, the Dolphins only had one play all night long, and their most successful play consistently all night long was simply the Tua underthrow.
Mm.
And that was, I mean, and once again, I mean, even the kind of the weather influenced that a little bit. They had a couple of successes with throws that were underthrown,
Mm.
but I think it was whether it was maybe Tua just not having the best grip, because he had several balls that came out tonight that just did not look like good act. I mean, like he had a good grip on the ball.
Right.
And I'm assuming that had to be a factor. I mean,
Hmm.
it did work out for them on the Tyreek touchdown, but that's literally a play I think that only Tyreek Hill can make,
Right.
with his ability to track the ball. But the weather, I think, was even a huge impact on the Dolphins' offense.
Yeah. It was like the equivalent of having either a vehicle or having your cell phone out, and the cold just sucks out that battery. That's basically what happened to the Dolphins' offense. Is the cold just sucked out the life of their battery, and they had almost no explosiveness tonight. They they were struggling, and I mean, if that's, if the temperatures are different, that's probably a different outcome, a different ball game, and a lot closer. But the temperatures in the playoffs and Arrowhead in that situation, that it wasn't happening. So I know I got a sneaky suspicion that it really bothers Tyreek that he's now 0-2 against his former team. I got a feeling that bothers him a lot more than people realize. And for the score to be what it was, even though it looks closer than it was because the Chiefs weren't as effective in the red zone, I think deep down part of Tyreek watching from the other sideline and seeing that team just perform the way that they do, I think deep down part of him misses that he's not on that sideline moving on the season, and that they already won a Super Bowl without him and they still were able to find a way. And I do kind of wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, it was some of the things that Tyreek has said. I mean, over the past year and a half or so since the whole thing went down, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, actually, I guess we're almost 2 years now, but
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt to me that, hey, some of the way that Tyreek has wanted to repaint his departure from Kansas City and his time, I mean, it does seem like there's some lamenting, and there's probably some regret. I know he likes where he is now, and he likes being in Miami, and obviously he's got a great relationship with Tua and his teammates down there. But yeah, that had to be hard watching his so many of his old teammates moving on without him.
And being successful. And like he's not the missing piece. Like I think that bothers him. And hey, I just realized this is going to be. I'm really intrigued to watch this upcoming Hard Knocks on HBO this week, because it's going to have so much of the prep for that week and the game itself. I'm curious to see how the guys were when they were mic'd up for it. So that's all going to be really, really interesting how that all shakes out.
Just putting a bow on the weather for tonight and everything. I'm curious what you think about how did it affect the Chiefs? I mean, we talked about how the Chiefs kind of thrived in it. Do you think that there were some plays and there were some issues in which maybe the weather did limit the Chiefs and maybe it did hurt them a little bit?
Yeah, on their opening drive, had the Chiefs not started leaning on the run game the way that they did, it felt like a 3-and-out was coming there for the most part, and that they were going to get derailed either at midfield or something like that. But Pacheco and Rice and Kelsey were able to kind of pull them out of that situation. So, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of their red zone, or at least I'm talking myself into it. It may not be accurate, but I'm talking myself into the fact that I think the Chiefs' red zone woes a lot this week had more to do with how cold it was out there, how frigid it was. And I don't think that I'm hoping they'll have better success next week if they're in better temperatures, if they're on the road or home, to whatever ends up happening with their opponent. Um, but yeah, no, I'm really, I feel like it was a struggle on some of the cuts that some of the receivers had, and for Mahomes at times, the way the Dolphins were bringing certain blitzes, and they kept coming through that B gap between Tooney and Donovan Smith with the way they had things set up. So all that combined, there's room for improvement in the red zone. There's a lot of room for improvement, but from a run game, I don't know if you can ask more than the 30 some carries at more than 130 yards that they had tonight. And with what Rashee Rice did, I mean, him and Pacheco, they really helped take some of the pressure off Mahomes.
And absolutely incredible game from Rashee Rice for a rookie to come in and have that kind of game, 130 yards, breaking the rookie franchise record for most yards in a playoff game that was originally set by Elmo Wright on Christmas Day,
The Elmo Wright.
1971. The Elmo Wright,
Wow.
love the name,
Yeah.
Against the Miami Dolphins on Christmas Day, 1971.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, I mean, not a big deal. I mean, but me being, the dork historian that I am, would like to point out that Chiefs were 0-3 against the Dolphins in playoff history. So there was some exercising of some demons with this win tonight.
That's one of the ones I didn't think that the Chiefs needed to exercise, but mark it off Mahomes' checklist. Another one to add to the books.
Exactly. The only Chiefs quarterback that can beat the Dolphins in the playoffs is Patrick Mahomes.
You need a trend busted, call 15. He'll get you through Colts, Dolphins. Is there anything else that we need exact revenge on that we can think of? He could probably do that. Take it to AFC championships, done it. Super Bowl wins, knocks that out. Or just, if there's who you going to call, it's 15. That's who you're going to call.
And if he can beat Green Bay in a Super Bowl, that would officially right all wrongs.
Yeah, it'd be like a full circle at that point. Just
exactly
all of it.
Big circle of life.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm coming back to it again because I was really impressed with Rashee's performance tonight. Especially the way that he did it, because it wasn't just all design throws to Rashee. There were some of them in there, but there were some plays where he just made serious adjustments, and he talked about it after the game about learning the offense and learning and understanding that the options that a receiver has, because you and I have talked about this, that a big part of the Chiefs offense is, as a receiver, is identifying zone versus man, and then realizing that you have different options based on that coverage. And some receivers we see have a difficult time struggling with that. I mean, they have a difficult time understanding and grasping it, and maybe never really get it. Rashee is a rookie, and going out there and being able to make those adjustments and making him Patrick friendly, as Andy has said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like the first one that he started the party off on, that zone where he just simply shuffled. He noticed and he shuffled and found a spot and void for Patrick, and Patrick was able to connect with him. Like you're like, all right, there's that growth from start of the season till there. That's like he's already in that zone. And then some of those catches he had, and even after he accidentally tripped himself, but then still was able to make it back on the field, even though he's hobbled for a couple plays, and soldier through that with that cold temperatures. That was impressive as well. Just from where he was starting out in training camp to where he's at now, there's not many players I've seen be able to make that level of growth in Andy Reid's offense that quickly. That's what fascinates me about the season, no matter what happens. It's just the level that Rice invested in himself. Because, you think about it, for people that don't remember, his first day, whenever they had the rookie stuff up at camp, the poor guy, had some heat issues that day, and people were questioning his conditioning already and everything. And I was not one of them, and you were not one of them, because we knew the heat that day, and that was a humid day. So I think people forget that people aren't robots, so playing in this extreme cold versus that humidity that day and some of the heat they dealt with, it's just been. Now, reflecting on it, Rice has really grown by leaps and bounds this year. And he's shown that he could be a really good number two, and probably great number two in this system. And if you give him a one to learn from, Rice might be able to be, might be able to be a really great one someday. But if he gets mentorship in the proper way down the road here, and they invest in a veteran that can show him that rope, that is going to pay. No matter what you pay that veteran, that is going to pay off for years with what Rice can be in this Chiefs offense with Mahomes. So that's actually part of what you're really truly investing in free agency, is somebody to be that player that helps take Rice to that next level of what he could tap into as a receiver.
Yeah, that's what I find really remarkable is just how much he's been able to develop when really, I mean, doing a lot of it just on his own. No knock against still some of the vets that the Chiefs have, but
Yeah.
they don't have a Juju Smith-Schuster. They don't have that accomplished 1,000-yard receiver that Tyreek. This isn't like George Karlaftis being able to get mentored by a Frank Clark or a
Yeah.
Chris Jones. I mean, yeah, Rasheed's kind of doing it on his own. And to have the year that he's had, like you said, in an Andy Reid offense is just remarkable. And now to be playing his best football in the postseason,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think it's exaggerating to say that if the Chiefs are going to make any noise in the playoffs, it's Rashee Rice is going to have to be a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean he'll be a big part of it, and the thing that they'll need, no matter who they play next week, that's going to be Kelsey being able to add to that mix. And if they can find another receiver who can add to that mix in better temperatures, like that really puts this Chiefs offense in more of a potent level that I think they're after. But man, with the way the wind was tonight and the way that cold was tonight, there was only a certain amount of stuff they were going to be able to do in the passing game to effectively get it. And they had their hiccups here and there in the run game after they started off pretty good. And so the Dolphins had some answers for them. But yeah, no, I mean, I would have loved to seen a couple more touchdowns, but man, there's so much to take away from this Chiefs performance that you're like, okay, like they got a chance now if they play like this, like they got a chance to get back to that conference championship, no matter who the heck they're playing next week.
Well, and one reason why certainly the Chiefs will have a chance is because this defense continues to play
Hmm.
lights out. The Dolphins were the number 2 scoring offense in the league. They averaged 29.2 points a game this season, and in 2 games against the Chiefs, they scored 21 points.
Hmm.
Their 3 worst games of the season were scoring 7 points against the Chiefs, 14 against the Chiefs, and 14 against Buffalo last week. I mean, the Chiefs got their number. I mean, and now maybe it is a good matchup. I mean, certainly the Chiefs had the advantage of not having to play the Dolphins in Miami, got them in Frankfurt and got them in Kansas City in January. But I still feel like that this is just a defense that one matches up really well against the Dolphins,
Mm.
but two, I mean this team, but specifically this defense, they enjoy going up against tough competition, and they seem to raise their game when they're going up against the better offenses.
Yeah, I agree with that. I felt like the Chiefs defense really thrived under the conditions and then under that challenge of what they were going against with the Dolphins, like you said. And so I counted it up. This is the 15th time this season the Chiefs have held an opponent to 21 or less. So, like, that's insane in itself. In this era of football, for the Chiefs to have had that string throughout the season, the 15th time of doing that, and to, like you said, to hold the Dolphins to 7 points, no matter what the temperature was. And all that was an underthrown pass that, like you said, Tyreek adjusted to. Otherwise, they get shut out from the game. And if the Chiefs red zone was able to kind of punch a couple of those in, Dolphins give up even quicker than that. So I mean, like, yeah, the plan that Steve Spagnuolo put together, and the night that George Karlaftis had, the way that he was rushing the passer, because the thing about Tua is if you bull rush Tua or you make him antsy and he gets off his spot, he is awful at resetting his feet. He is awful footwork wise. And that's why you have those overthrows or those underthrows. And that's why Mike Edwards had the interception that he did, is because Amenahu put the guard in his lap and Tua had to adjust his feet. He had to back up, adjust his feet, and his base was just awful. And that's why he sailed that pass. And then on top of it, having the temperature the way that it was, like that didn't help either. But yeah, no, the Dolphins at one point, I thought they had something whenever they were trying to do misdirection. So they were trying to misdirect the Chiefs and then sneak in on the opposite side of it. And they had success for a handful of plays, but boy, Spagnuolo and them, adjustment, boom, done. And then that didn't exist anymore. So it was, yeah, I mean, that was Steve Spagnuolo had a heck of a game plan. And I'm very intrigued if the Chiefs get the chance to play the Bills, and if they do find a way to play the Ravens down the road here. I'm very intrigued to see what that Chiefs defense can do against both those teams.
Yeah, and there was one look. I don't know if they got back to it, but it was going to be on that first. I believe it was the first third down that the Dolphins had, and they ended up getting a penalty that pushed them back. But among the many different looks, and that was the other thing. I mean, the Chiefs had a lot of different fronts tonight. I mean, they even had a couple where they only brought two defensive linemen on a rush. They had Karlaftis dropping back, Chris Jones dropping back. I mean, they were mixing up the looks quite a bit. Oh, they had that one I wanted to see because it was Leo Chanel and Mike Dana lined up as the edge rushers on the outside, and I've been just waiting to unleash Leo as an edge rusher, and I thought we were gonna get it, not just a blitzer, but as a pure edge rusher,
Mm-hmm.
and then penalty wiped it out. So
Way to go. Way to go, Jawan Taylor. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. Jawan Taylor had 3 different drive stoppers, but that's unfortunate that happened. But yeah, that cost them a couple times today. But the Chiefs overcame it at various points and were able to put up the magic number, Matt.
the magic number,
24 and above.
24 and above is all you need.
All right, I got to 26. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, winner, winner, chicken dinner.
That's right. Divisional dinner is what it is.
Can we also have another L'Jarius Sneed appreciation discussion?
Sure. Let's go ahead.
Because I think he had 5 targets, gave up 2 catches for 20 yards, mostly on Jalen Waddle. I mean, the Chiefs did play a lot of zone tonight, so it wasn't completely just him traveling with Waddle. I mean, he matched up against Tyreek and some of the other receivers too.
Mm-hmm.
Although his planting Tyreek into the ground on that one sequence, and then when Tyreek got up, he put him back down again.
Mm-hmm.
That one lit up his teammates. that was a big exchange, and I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed tried to get it in Tyreek's head tonight, and I think he won that battle.
Yeah, Tyreek, you tell, man, on the final couple of drives for the Dolphins there in the fourth quarter, like that team they're like, are we done yet? Is this done? Is this over? And Tyreek, he looked like a physically just worn out man. That he had enough too, and he was ready to be done with it, and start that off season. I haven't seen a team have their soul taken in the way that the Dolphins did there and in the second half of that football game. Like they were, I was like, okay, if Tyreek gets another touchdown here or does something explosive, he may keep his team hanging around and everything. Maybe they run into something luck wise, but I was like, it's going to be up to Tyreek to be able to be that fire starter. Because, Devin A-Chain, he didn't even exist tonight. I thought he was going to exist like Aaron Jones did against the Packers a couple years ago with the potential mismatch. And boy, he wasn't even in that ballpark. And I'm going to look up his stats real quick. And he had 6 carries for 9 yards.
Yeah, 1.5 yards a carry.
Wow, and then Mostert only had 8 for 33. Like, goodness gracious!
For as much success as the Dolphins have had running the football this year, and even the last couple of weeks, I mean, Achane had looked pretty good in the last couple of weeks. It looked like to me that he was past that injury, but tonight, whether that was the injury popping back up again or not feeling it, I mean, Mostert did get the start, which I thought was kind of curious, but. That was an absolute shutdown of the Dolphins' run game.
Yeah, and something else, Matt. It's one of those rare times where we can bring up the snap counts because we're taping this thing so late. For people that don't know, it's currently 3:20 in the morning on Sunday while Matt and I are taping this. So just know how dedicated we are to you.
And there's only 2 games, so they were able to get the snap counts up faster than usual. Usually we have to wait until like 4:00 in the morning.
Well, you know what, Matt? You're right. You've only got a couple games. But yeah, is there anything that stuck out to you in the snap count?
I am pulling it up now.
Okay.
And one thing we probably should discuss is that there was a surprise inactive amongst with a healthy scratch with Felix Anaduke-Ozama.
Yeah.
Curious about your thoughts about that one. I mean, I think I have a reason for it, but I'm curious about what your thoughts are too.
For me, I think, well, to put it bluntly, I think he's still working his way through how to be a run defender. And if you've got to decide in cold weather between Malik Herring who's kind of established himself and had a pretty good performance the week before against the Chargers. If you're going to use him or even, Mike Pennell, who you really needed in the run game, then that's the decision you make. And then obviously with the player that the Chiefs recently signed, he's still not there yet for them to be able to try to utilize him. So, I mean, for the Chiefs, I get it, because I'm excited to see Bugs down the road next year. I'm curious to, as a potential one tech for him, what he could potentially be and the promise he has. But I know it's going to take a little bit of time before he can integrate in. And I think he's also kind of that option if Pennell runs out of, opportunities on the practice squad to where they got to figure out a roster decision. Maybe Bugs is that guy who can kind of help in that one tech spot. And with Derrick Nottie having the elbow injury, but it'll be interesting to see kind of what they do with that one tech spot. But I mean, Bugs put some tape together in his time in Pittsburgh and Detroit where he fits what they want in a one tech, and he could help in that run defense as well. So with Felix, I personally think it came down to he's still working his way as a run defender. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, because you're right. I mean, it was a choice of having Malik Herring up instead of Anadike Uzama. The one other benefit with Herring is that he does have some versatility. So if they needed to kick him inside, he can do that. I also thought it was interesting that they mixed up the third down package a little bit too, and that's where Felix would normally be a part of that third down package. And it looked to me like this the way that they structured that this week to go against the Dolphins. He probably just wouldn't have factored in that as much. I think they wanted some different personnel out there. I think they would have wanted a little bit different speed. It's clear that I think that on third downs, they were anticipating that they were still going to do exactly what you talked about. They wanted to use some power. They wanted to be able to disrupt, to his timing, whether that means just, getting into his lap that way. And that's not Felix's game. So, yeah, it did seem like Herring was probably the better fit. Didn't play a ton of snaps, only played 6 snaps. Derrick Nottie played 7 with the elbow injury. Yeah. I'll tell you what, the one thing that does kind of really jump out at me, Charles Omenihu played 80% of the snaps. 49. I mean, he's not even technically usually a starter. I mean, Mike Dana and George Karlaftis are the starters technically. Yeah. But Omenihu played more snaps than both of them.
Yeah, and they worked him inside on a handful of plays at a 3-tech spot from time to time. So I'm not surprised to see that. They were able to give him a lot of different looks. So, yeah, for a minute here to get 49 to 61, that doesn't stun me. But it is funny. The guys who got 97% of the snaps or better would be Bolton at 59, McDuffie, Mike Edwards, Sneed, and Reed at 61. So they were in for every defensive play. So that's pretty intriguing. And then you got Karlaftis there at 45, and then Jamari Connor to get 37, get more than half the snaps on defense. That's actually really impressive. So yeah, from a defensive perspective, still bummed to see Tranquil only got 17. That irritates me. But nothing I can do about it. And then but Willie Gay got 23. So. No, and Chanel barely got 11.
Really, the Chiefs did not use their linebackers a lot today.
No, but I understand it because, outside of Tranquil, that was going to be a mismatch. Yeah. So, the way that they limited that's actually pretty smart. And then, but man, for the offense to have 79 plays out in that cold, holy heck.
Yeah, the offense was running 79 snaps. That's a lot. I'm starting to understand now why Trey Smith, half an hour after the game told me he still couldn't feel his fingers.
I believe it.
Offensively, it was a little bit shorter bench. To me, a little bit. Especially when you start looking at receiver, Rashee Rice, 77% of the snaps, 61 total. Justin Watson was at 68. Then all of a sudden you drop down to Marquez Valdez-Scantling at 41%. Noah Gray played more than Marquez did. And then you get down, Richie James played 20%, McCall Hardman 34%. It was a decent amount of 12 and even some 13 personnel. Blake Bell 20 snaps. Just 25% of the snaps. That's a little bit more than Blake usually gets. So it was
Mhm.
definitely and certainly late game situations, running the football played a little bit of factor and influenced those numbers a little bit. But no doubt, I mean, the Chiefs want to get on the field Rashee Rice. They want to get him out there with Justin Watson. Probably a lot of 12 personnel with two tight ends. Not as much for Marquez, which I know I'm sure a lot of people are glad to see, but I'm still surprised that he just had 41% of the snaps tonight.
Yeah, and for Hartman to have 27 snaps and to kind of have the like, okay, I'm gonna say this about Hartman. Like, look, he had the speed, and like Mahomes put it in good spots for him for the most part, in my opinion. Um, but like, dude, there were times where he didn't make an effort to try to catch it. Like, he didn't even extend his arms out to at least try to make an effort to catch it. He either threw his hands up in the air and upset about penalty or getting held or whatever. He's still going to make an effort to try to catch it. So they're just not going to give you the penalty just because of that. At least go try to make an effort to catch it. Like, don't have alligator arms. Like, just come on, man. So like that one really, there was 3 throws that happened that I'm like, dude, come on, man. They brought you back. They traded for you for this moment. You got a chance to really kind of put yourself back on the map for the postseason, and you just showed effort that just wasn't there.
The one that was over the middle of the field when he did get held and should have gotten a flag. I'm with you. I mean, had he continued to go after the ball, he probably gets the penalty. But I
Right.
think by giving up on the play a little bit, he probably made the official think, well, that wasn't catchable, so no, we're not going to throw the flag.
Right.
And I think clearly the one down the sideline, which was in the same area that Tyreek made the catch, it certainly looked like he probably lost the ball at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and we know, I mean, we've heard Tyreek say it, and the numbers back it up. Hey, I get it. Catching the ball at Arrowhead at night is tough. The numbers actually do back it up that is hard to do. But yeah, that was 3 plays that could have been made.
Yeah, and like the other part of it is that some of the guys I don't think realize sometimes is when you just throw your hands up in the air and you kind of stop on your route, you're kind of showing up the ref, and like sometimes they're not going to give in. So like you got to keep running through as if it's not bothering you or affecting you, and the ref may kind of lean more towards your side. He's like, "Hey, you still played through it. There's the flag." And I'm gonna nitpick this right now. This one bugged me a little bit early on in the game when Rice converted that first down on third. The third down where he stretched his arm out and that one was converted. Part of what I was upset about on that one, and this is just for something down the road because this may happen in a bigger moment. Like even if it's not because I saw it live and I'm like, man, I would throw that challenge flag. And anyways, the Chiefs were kind of disoriented anyways. So like if you burn the timeout, you burn the timeout. But everybody gets over, you get to reset, go through a couple plays if you need to. But for them to line up, then take the timeout, and then throw the challenge flag for a review, say the officials like don't reverse it. You've lost what 2 timeouts on one play. Like that's I don't know. For me, that one I'm like, man, like some of you guys are getting paid up in the booth to like see that. And like you gotta let him know, hey, throw it. It may not work out right now, but throw it, let the team regroup.
I mean, I thought live, I thought he had the first down when he stretched out for it.
Yeah,
So I mean,
you
just
could see it on
naked
TV.
eye. I mean, it seemed to me. I mean,
Right.
so I was all ready to say throw the flag.
Right.
But the officials, it was also a rough night. There were some interesting calls. Not gonna lie. I mean, I'm still confused on the one where the ball went backwards, and the officials ruled that it was a forward pass that hit the helmet of a player and then went backwards. That player was an offensive lineman, so I'm not quite sure why it wasn't illegal touching
Yeah.
if it was a forward pass.
Right.
But, Chiefs won, so who cares, right? We'll move on.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to move on from some of those things when you get that W.
We're not going to know who the Chiefs play in the divisional weekend until Monday evening, once the Chiefs or once the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills finally get to play their game.
Yeah.
And we'll see what kind of weather that's played in, since it sounds like there still might be some snow sticking around, and it's certainly going to be cold and blustery in Buffalo. But Any thoughts? Anything about the Steelers and Buffalo, about how you think that game might play out?
I'm curious temperature wise how things are going to go. I mean, if they had TJ Watt, I'd have a little bit more confidence about it. But Mason Rudolph going in an environment like that and potential weather like that, I'm it's really going to be on Pittsburgh's defense to have a really sound football game. It's going to be on Pittsburgh's O line to open up the holes, to let them be able to kind of really pound the run against the Bills. And Pickens and Johnson are really going to have to kind of bail Mason Rudolph out a couple of times. So I mean, the pieces are there on the Steelers roster to get it to that point, but like you take a look at the Texans Browns, I did not anticipate the Browns laying the egg that they did today against the Texans, getting picked off multiple times, and Flacco having the struggle he did. I thought they'd have a much better showing, but they didn't. So, like, you never know. It's going to be up to if you take away James Cook and a lot of Josh Allen's run game, and you have some long sustaining drives and force him to really have to take some shots and take some chances and play hero ball, he'll give you some turnovers. It's just a matter of, can you get him to that point and really kind of make stuff rough with him by eliminating Cook and Diggs from the options he can get the ball to. And if you do that, like, I mean, the Steelers could go in there and upset them, but it takes a specific style and game plan that I think to make that happen. So, I mean, we'll see if the Chiefs get the Texans because the Steelers had an upset, or if the Chiefs get to go to Buffalo. But I'm gonna be intrigued either way because I'm really excited to see how the Chiefs do against both the Texans and if they have to go on the road to play Buffalo in the playoffs. And it kind of flips the script from what Buffalo's had to do coming to Kansas City.
And and obviously, I mean, the Chiefs could host a divisional round game. If the Steelers pull the upset, then the Chiefs would host Houston in the divisional round. I would not mind seeing that at some point because Houston's offense is playing really well right now. Obviously, CJ Stroud looks really good, but I tell you what, watching that game today from the press box against Cleveland, I just could not help but thinking, I think this Chiefs defense would match up really well against the Texans.
Yes, because the Texans run the same play over and over again, just from different formations.
Yes.
That's where Stroud's at. So yeah, the Chiefs defense would set a tempo just like they did against the Dolphins, and they would take away a lot of what Stroud wants to do, and they would take away the Chiefs would be defensively would be very locked in, and I don't think the Texans would have a good day offensively.
So the question would then be, whomever goes to Baltimore, if it's the Steelers, if it's Houston, if they can pull the upset and the Chiefs can win divisional round, AFC Championship game at Arrowhead is still not out of the question.
It would just be so fascinating if the Steelers pull the upset and Mahomes still not going on the road for the playoffs yet.
It would be amazing.
That would be insane.
It would be absolutely insane. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I think that one of the marquee games of the playoffs would absolutely be Mahomes and Josh Allen in Orchard Park. I mean, that would be an incredible game.
Yeah.
I still think the Chiefs would have a chance to win that one. And obviously, I mean, even then, an AFC Championship game could still come to Arrowhead if Houston were to upset the Ravens in that scenario. A lot can still happen, Nick. So we'll see. But this was a very encouraging win for the Chiefs as far as their postseason potential goes to me.
Yeah, there's still a lot of things that are fixable on offense, but there's still a ton of promise. Just like that Bengals game. It mirrored so much of that Bengals game. So I mean, I remember because I think you were there when I asked Matt Nagy one like short yardage and red zone. And I brought that up for a reason because I knew it was going to probably be like this, and it was either going to be really good or it was going to leave a lot on the table. And I know he talked about that, and the Chiefs had struggles with both of those in this game. So I didn't ask that by accident. But then whenever I told him kind of what he wanted to see from an offense or what he wanted, and he talked about wanting them to play fast and play clean. They played the fast part, but the clean still wasn't there.
Still not there. While we don't know the Chiefs' opponent, we may not even know the Chiefs' kickoff time until Monday. We'll see. I mean, maybe the NFL will come out with their schedule. And it could even be a contingent schedule. That's the current speculation and conjecture, because there are obviously two games on Monday, both the AFC and the NFC. So it might have to be an either or kind of a situation. But I know at least the speculation is that because of the postponement, that the league would not have the Bills play on Saturday, which would certainly be a detriment to them. But regardless, I mean, especially if the Chiefs playing Buffalo, I mean, whomever plays Buffalo is going to have 2 days of extra rest on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a challenge for the Bills.
Yes, I think that really hinders them. So that's where I'm like, okay, Chiefs get 2 extra days ahead of them. I mean, that's not terrible.
So if the Chiefs are playing the Bills, I think you can probably bet on that game being on Sunday.
Yeah.
If it's not the Bills, probably a decent chance the Chiefs could play on Saturday. I mean, we'll see what happens, because obviously if Pittsburgh wins, then they would probably get the Sunday game as well, just because the league's not wanting to punish those teams. And same thing, and the Monday night game in the NFC, that game will probably also be on Sunday as well. We'll see. I mean, this is kind of uncharted territory, getting playoff games postponed till Monday. Right. It's not normal. No. And I can tell you, there were a couple of, side comments and everything in the Chiefs locker room after the game about, that game got postponed and pushed back, but Chiefs playing in -4-degree weather didn't get pushed back.
I have a theory on that. I don't know if I want to make it public right now, but I'm just saying people. I'll phrase it this way: legality wise, getting people to get to the stadium, I think there's still a window left open. While if you have a ticket or parking pass, I imagine there's some fine print there somewhere that helps them escape some legalities. But I don't know that to be fact. I'm just saying, like, if I'm thinking in my Suits TV show mindset, there's always a fine print.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, that one of their obviously concern, the bigger concern in Buffalo rather, was the safety of the people actually getting to the stadium on Sunday versus Monday. Whereas in Kansas City, I mean, it was really just dealing with the cold, and I mean, I think it's going to be just as cold tomorrow as it is today on Saturday. So probably not a big difference, even if you played Sunday afternoon. So if you took the Buffalo time slot, I don't think it'd be a whole lot different. But a big Chiefs win, a very promising performance by the Chiefs. We will get to see Kansas City back in action during the divisional round. Any parting thoughts or final observations on this one, Nick?
Yeah, man, it's my T-shirt. I wore it today specifically. It says, "I just hope both teams have fun," and I hope the Dolphins did.
I don't think the Dolphins had that much fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, hopefully they got to have some Kansas City barbecue while they're here.
They do deserve that. I do hope that they got some of that last night.
Yeah, or in their flight home. Either way,
it would at least make the trip to Kansas City worth it.
Yes. So yeah, that's my final thought until we know who the heck the Chiefs are going to play. But it is interesting. I will say this. Actually, this is my final thought now. I am kind of curious, like how numbers will do for the Bills game on a Monday at 3:30. I am intrigued by that because, I mean, it technically is, Martin Luther King Day. So, I mean, it's going to be a holiday for a lot of people. So I do kind of wonder. I'm like, okay, does that become the next trend? If the numbers do well, is it a double header 3 days in a row thing?
Yeah. Because, of course, remember, I mean, the divisional round games on Saturday were never primetime games until that Chiefs-Steelers game. The weather encouraged them to push it back until prime time. And, of course, the numbers did so great that they're like, hey, let's do this every year.
I just hope both teams had fun.
I bet that I know Peacock had fun. So it was a good broadcast. So I give my props to them.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, it's the NBC crew, so I mean,
Exactly.
they were going to do a good job with it. I'm curious how many of those guys from the crew are having to go to the Detroit Rams game the following day. What that travel would be like.
Yeah, exactly. That could be a tough weekend for some people.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, Matt, I just hope both teams had fun.
There you go. Well, we will be back with you later this week. I'll be back with you on the Chiefs Digest YouTube page on Tuesday night for our weekly Q&A. I don't know if I can talk Nick into joining me on his day off like he usually sometimes does, but
You act like I don't show up every Tuesday for you.
you do show up every Tuesday, and I'm sure very grateful for that. But I also it's your day off.
Fridays is where it gets sticky because we got the 30-minute Road to Vegas show.
And my Friday was sticky the other day, so I didn't even get to do Friday's show. So
I didn't know you didn't get to do it. Well, that's a bummer.
I know. So we'll try and make it up to everybody this week. Maybe I can squeeze in an extra show this week, and we might even have to do something on Monday. Maybe after.
I am wide open on Monday.
Well, you might see bonus coverage on Chiefs Digest YouTube page on Monday. You'll certainly get the Q&A on Tuesday for sure, and wherever the Chiefs play next weekend in the divisional round, of course, you can come back here for 41 is the mic.
That's right. There's another week of it, and we're still doing it in the off season, but there's another week where we're talking about actual things happening that week.
Yeah, I mean, Nick and I don't want the off season to begin soon, but we're ready for it.
Yeah, no,
we've already got ideas.
I know we've already got ideas, and then I've got draft prospects I'm ready to start watching here within the next week after everything's finally all tightened up with declarations and everything.
But we're gonna ride out this Chiefs season as long as we can.
Yeah, at least another week. We'll see how it goes from there.
Thank you all for joining us once again. We will be back with you next week. And like I said, feel free to come over and join us on the Chiefs Digest YouTube page and catch us up during the week as we check in with you with the Chiefs from Arrowhead.
I bid you adieu.
Take care, everybody. Thanks a lot.